in your vaccines. All of it, slow kill. So 20, 30 years down the road. But now that's not enough for them. They've just been testing quietly and enjoying the pain and the cancer rates exploding. And because when you read their quotes, folks, it is the one thing binds them together, the frothing, demonically energized hatred of humanity. They love the kids with their hair falling out and dying. They see them as roaches. And I mean, they love it. When you have to fathom their this gibbering wickedness. I mean, it is something to behold. And the crying, the holy rolling in death. I mean, it's just, you can go to these events, you can read news articles about them, just the crying and they just publicly proclaim their hatred of humanity. Aaron Dykes, you've got quotes. Go over it for people. Break down what I'm telling them here. Am I exaggerating in any way?
Not at all. This stuff is horrifying. Take all the stuff you heard about eco-science. Holdren and Ehrlich came up with nothing. They regurgitated and carried the water for the quotes, and they summarized.
This is 150 years old.
Population planning stuff. They all said
they discovered DNA to kill us. They created computers to track us. It is their religion. Sorry.
Okay, take a simple quote from a true tyrant. He wasn't into eugenics, or at least directly associated with it. He was definitely into mass culling. Joseph Stalin. Death is the solution to all problems. No man, no problem. Now let's compare that to the quotes of the eugenicists. The Club of Rome, in their 1991 First Global Revolution book, said mankind is the enemy. They have a whole chapter about finding an external enemy to fight the environmental crisis, prop all that up, and blame mankind.
Club of Rome? Yeah. We're going to have all this written as a big article with video, with links to all of it.
Here's a long quote, but it's important. Lord Bertrand Russell, he wrote The Impact of Science on Society, and the
Nobel Prize winner.
Yeah, and it's all about this culling. I do not pretend birth control is the only way in which population can be kept from increasing. There are others which one must suppose opponents of birth control would prefer. War, as I remarked a moment ago, has hitherto been disappointing, but perhaps bacteriological war may prove more effective. If a Black Death could be spread through the world once in every generation, survivors could procreate freely without making the world too full. There would be nothing in this to offend the consciences of the devout or to restrain the ambitions of the nationalists. There's a state of affairs that might be somewhat unpleasant, but what of it? Really high-minded.
And if you look them all up, they all want, go back and finish it. They all want world government. They all want one world state. And then they tell us like we're sheep that doesn't exist. Finish the end part. Really high-minded people know we need to kill. Go ahead.
Bertrand Russell has one of the highest IQs in history.
Oh, he's so smart. But let's just read how high-minded people want to kill
Really high-minded people are indifferent to happiness, especially other people's. Then you've got Prince Philip. He's got a couple of these quotes. Here's one of them. If I were reincarnated, I would wish to be returned to Earth as a killer virus to lower human population levels.
And again, these are all bibliographed, Reuters, you name it. Continue.
He was the founder of the World Wildlife Fund on top of everything else. Dave Foreman, Sierra Club and founder of Earth First. I believe the human overpopulation is the fundamental problem on Earth today. We humans have become a disease, the human pox. He goes on in a separate quote. The AIDS epidemic, rather than being a scourge, is a welcome development. It is the inevitable reduction of human population. If it didn't exist, radical environmentalists would have to invent it.
Which it was invented, and we have all the documents on that. But the issue here is, again, you industrialize, you educate people, this wouldn't even happen. You find out in the Royal Commission they actually wanted population to be high and then later cull it to actually keep control of the third world countries and not allow development. And really they're just a bunch of sick sadists. And all these dumb yuppies say, well, there are too many people when they see these facts. Listen, moron, they put it in your food too. You know, your mommy, your daddy, your son or daughter is going to die from this. Remember, you sickos, you're not part of the winning team. So don't imagine you are. Continue.
It's victimology, Alex. They like it.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. Here's one from Sir Thomas Malthus. He was the head of the Royal Society in the 1600s, or 1700s rather. Instead of recommending cleanliness to the poor, we should encourage contrary habits. In our towns, we should make the streets narrower, crowd more people into the houses, and court the return of the plague. He was the inspiration for the whole eugenics movement, properly named.
He even said spread diseases, which they were already doing.
Oh, there's other quotes.
We have weapons manuals.
I was in a hurry. Here is one from Barbara Marx Hubbard. She was a vice presidential candidate in '84. She didn't become the vice presidential nominee, but
she's one of the top New Agers.
Yeah, this is a long quote too, but tell me how bad this is. 1/4 is destructive, defective, who must be eliminated from the social body. Fortunately, you are not responsible for this act. We are. We are in charge of God's selection process for death. We come to bring death. The riders of the pale horse are about to pass among you, grim reapers. They will separate the wheat from the chaff. This is the most painful period in the history of humanity. In the past, they were permitted to die a natural death. We are in charge of God's selection process for planet Earth. He selects, we destroy. We are the riders of the pale horse, death.
That's Pentagon Fort Bragg training manual.
Yeah.
In fact, read the quote. That's from the Earth Battalion.
Says tasked Delta Force psychologist Barbara Marx Hubbard, supported by Rockefeller.
Yeah, but we actually have the manual on that. That's actually was taught to Special Forces.
And it's in a popular book.
Yeah,
I've got a copy.
Yeah, but as you said, Delta Forces taught that. Okay, let's continue.
Yeah, she goes on to say, we come to bring death to those who are unable to know God. The riders of the pale horse are about to pass among you. Grim reap. Well, I guess it's kind of repeated there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But in the manual, they just say that kill whoever we say, it's of Gaia. Yeah.
Then you've got the Project for a New American Century, Rebuilding America's Defenses. That was the neocon group just before the Bush administration. Part of their document talks about advanced forms of biological warfare that can target specific genotypes, may transform biological warfare into the realm of terror to a politically useful tool. Then you've got this guy, Dr. Paul Popenow. And you got to understand, this guy was an extreme eugenicist in the early 20s. He couldn't be associated with the normal eugenicists. He was covertly funded by the Rockefellers and the other money houses supporting the eugenics. He was marginalized, but he was still a hero to them. You have to understand that. From he was also an Army venereal disease specialist during World War I, and he wrote the textbook Applied Eugenics. From a historical point of view, the first method which it presents itself is execution. Its value in keeping the standard of the race should not be underestimated. Then Applied Eugenics goes on to devote a chapter to lethal selection, wherein part of the quote says, through the destruction of the individual by some adverse feature of the environment, such as excessive cold or bacteria, or by bodily deficiency. And these are just a few quotes. They go on and on. Then I've got the Eric Pianka stuff. He said things like, every one of you who gets to survive has to bury 9. Disease will control the scourge of humanity. I've got the report here, articles written about him from his Texas Academy of Speech.
Yeah, read some of the quotes from the transcript.
Yeah, well, this was the speech that was summarized as saying he advocates killing 9/10 of the world's population by an airborne Ebola virus. He also, in his speech, says the bird flu is good, too. You've talked about this before, of course, how AIDS doesn't work fast enough. He regurgitates a lot of the Club of Rome talking points.
But doesn't he have a smacking comment about loving bisphenol A?
Yeah, I'm getting to that. And this is people asking about politicians addressing the overpopulation problem. It says the reason China was able to overturn the corner and became the new superpower in the world is because they have a police state and they can force people to stop reproducing. Then he goes on to talk about how, yeah, there's cheating going on in China. You could pay more and have more in China. I know that. But there's a solution that's theoretically possible. I call it the Johnny anti-Appleseed solution. Instead of being cursed with our fertility, I would bless us with infertility. Now, this could happen because male sperm counts are falling because of plastics and the estrogen mimics. Then there's an unintelligible bracket, naturally. He's talking about the estrogen mimickers.
Yeah, they always brag about what they know is already deployed. He said this could happen. They know it's been happening for decades.
He's just regurgitating the same stuff they've been talking about.
And how about that breast cancer? Yeah, that's the bisphenol A. This is real cutesy. You know, your mama, your wife, all that pain, you put her in the ground. It's real funny to these people. Ha, 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 we're trendy. We're liberal.
Then he goes on to talk about a reproductive physiologist he talked to who asked him, could you design a molecule you could administer once that would bind to the DNA and turn off reproduction and make people sterile? Yes, he said, theoretically you could. And I said, well, if you did that, you can design an antidote that would unmask it just briefly for a few seconds. And he again said, yes, probably. So this is what we need. We need to sterilize everyone on the earth, and the audience laughs according to the transcript, and make the antidote freely available to anyone willing to work for it. Immediately you'd get responsible parenthood, blah, blah, blah. And they talk about this, too, where they're going to make everyone sterile.
But then they also fund the welfare state themselves to make us illegitimate so they have an excuse to kill us. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Alex Jones. Okay, so every time I talk about eugenics, a fact, and all the government documents, how they chose bisphenol out of thousands of combinations to reduce fertility, the printer ink, everything. When you cook your food on it, microwaves, all of it, they all brag about it. Brag about AIDS, all of it. It's real cute. People say, well, then why are they paying people to have children? What's the welfare about? Because eugenics is not what you're told. At the mid-level, they tell the professors and people, we're saving the earth. We're getting rid of all these evil poor people. You have to pose as a liberal so they trust you, and they get off on being part of the elite club. It's very easy. Like, you're an elite soldier, now go kill people. You're part of a special unit, and it's called the cement of blood. You'll do anything. Being part of the in crowd. But if you read the Royal Commission in 49, the British, the King financed it. It's His Royal Highness's commission. It's public. They said, well, we want to implement population reduction, but if we industrialize the countries and do all this, they'll be first world, and yeah, they'll go into negative population, just like they already known it happened with wealthy countries, but then we won't be able to control them. So we're going to go with a plan to let them have a giant population bloom, and then we'll reduce them later. So their hatred of humanity was so great that they said, instead of just educating them and rising them up, and then they won't have too many kids, if you believe it, we just can't do that. The spectacle of letting them all breed and then killing them is too delicious. So really, it's just these control freaks are schizophrenic in what they're doing. And eugenics, here's the secret, is not about building up one group of people and then culling out those that they see as having problems. And then you can debate whether that's moral or not, okay? And then, pointing out the welfare moms having 8 kids and saying, oh, come on, let's have licensing to breed. It's really targeted at the highly intelligent native sons or wild sons, because they write about this too. But we got to get those that crop up that we don't get recruited. So it's generally about dumbing everybody down. That goes back to feudalism. They admit eugenics is a neo-feudalistic system where they would keep people on subsistence level as a tool of control. And so really they just like seeing kids starving to death. They're really just horrible, horrible people. And they enjoy jacking the food and water, and they're just a bunch of demons. And eugenics is just kind of a mid-level cosmology that they follow, but that's not really it. Aaron, closing comments on this.
Yeah, I mean, as far as is the world overpopulated and all this, think whatever you want as long as you're thinking for yourselves. Don't turn yourselves over to psychopaths reveling in death and looking forward to the great plagues. They're going to kill everyone off. These people are bathing in this stuff, and it's disgusting.
And they're weaponizing everything under the sun and setting drones up. This has been leaked and declassified, and the Texas Sunshine Project got it, to have drones take off with knockout gases to knock out whole cities or worse. You know why they want a drone army, don't you? Folks, we've already checkmated them. The fact that this is out, a lot of you aren't going to listen until later. But remember this radio show later. Remember it.
Yeah. It's true. They don't want competition either. I mean, Bertrand Russell writes about killing competition, smart individuals who they can't co-opt while they're brainwashing the masses and teaching them to, quote, believe that black is white.
No, it's just everything is encapsulated in the Fox News Christmas card they publicly posted. It shows their listeners as sheep and the other media was sheep, but they've pulled ahead of them. And the message is, you're so dumb, we're going to publish this ourselves, we're your sheep. And then when the media writes about it, they play along with the game, going, oh, look, it shows them going ahead of their competition, never mentioning the listeners are the ones paying for it, paying for the advertisers. They're the sheep. These people need to hurt people. They need to dumb you down. They need to think of you as trash. And they will hypo-needle you full of cancer viruses and bisphenol A and sodium fluoride to do it. And they will sit there and tell you can't vote for Ron Paul and just break the hoax. Because you look at them, I mean, look at this Bash lady. I mean, she's an ugly chicken neck weasel looking person. She could star in The Dark Crystal right now, no makeup needed. I mean, she's a Skeksis. And she just thinks she'll talk to you and you'll just do what she says. I'll see you on the news tonight, 7 o'clock, prisonplanet.tv.